Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. No matter what time of night or day, I'm still just as happy that you stopped by my channel. Thank you ever so much. I'm Minister Paul J. Bern, in case we haven't met. I'm the online pastor of the online faith-based community known as the Social Gospel Worship and Learning Center, based in Atlanta, Georgia, sending blog posts and videos around the world. It's a virtual church, but it's not a traditional church at all. We have no dogma, we have no rule book, we have no religion. All we have is Jesus Christ, the Son of God, who was crucified, died, and resurrected, and even now is seated at his Father's right hand, waiting for that cue from his dad to go on, go bring us home. And bring us home he shall. But today I want to talk about something quite a bit different, a more serious tone. This is part 2 of what I published last week on the blog and on the video on YouTube that outlined everything that was going on as far as Russia and the nation of Israel were concerned. This is part 2, and what this has been, well, you got Ezekiel chapter 38 last week, and now you're going to get 39 this week. I couldn't put it all into one big long session because it would have ran on too long. So I cut them in half. By the way, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel free of charge by clicking on the little subscribe button there just below your screen, just above the comment section. Also in the comment section you will find instructions for sending donations, which we need, or to subscribe to the blog. The paid version is $5 a month or $50 a year. It works out to about 16 cents a day. And there's a free version of the blog too. The blog can be found on Media. The web address is located in the comment section as well. Just in those comments, just click on that word more, because it's a link. It'll pull up the rest of it, gives you all the instructions. You can donate on PayPal. We're a registered nonprofit on PayPal. The email address for that is in the instructions too. Stripe is our other one. You can donate on Stripe. The instructions are in the box. And that's all I'm going to say about that until the very end. Now, this is part 2 of Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39. The title is almost the same as last week's: Vladimir Putin, the Arab nations, and biblical prophecy. Closing in on Armageddon. We're not at Armageddon yet, but we're closing in on it, and I'm going to explain exactly what I mean about that starting right now. We're going to be moving on to part 2 of last week's posting regarding the reelection of Russian President Vladimir Putin, and what this means for humanity in terms of our understanding of biblical prophecy. For last Sunday's message, I went over the first 16 verses of Ezekiel chapter 38 as they apply to the modern era. As I also wrote last week concerning the Gog-Magog War of Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39, At some point in the very near future, Russia, together with the armies of Iraq, Iran, Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, and Somalia, will attack Israel. The address for the blog post is located at the bottom. And the video, you can just go back to last week's video and view that if you like. But this is exactly the portrait that the prophet Ezekiel paints of this end-time scenario known as the Gog-Magog War. Now understand, this is not World War III. This is the war before World War III. I'll explain that too. And so today, we will continue near where we left off last week, starting at verse 18 of chapter 38. Getting pretty far down into it. And the scripture reads as follows, and I quote, "This is what will happen on that day when Gog attacks the land of Israel. My hot anger will be aroused, declares the sovereign Lord. In my zeal and fiery wrath, I will declare at that time that there shall be a great earthquake in the land of Israel. The fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the beasts of the field, and every creature that moves along the ground, and all the people on the face of the earth will tremble at my presence. The mountains will be overturned, the cliffs will crumble, and every wall will fall to the ground. I will summon a sword against Gog a sword against Gog on all my mountains, declares the sovereign Lord. Every man's sword will be against his brother. I will execute upon him plague and bloodshed. I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, and burning sulfur upon him and on his troops and on the many nations with it." Now that's Ezekiel 38, close quote by the way. Ezekiel 38 verses 18 through 23. As you just heard, God can use natural disasters to come to Israel's aid. And this is going to be one instance where that's exactly what's going to occur. And it's not the first time it happens either. It's happened before in the Old Testament. Notice two things though. In the first sentences, which comprise verses 18 and 19. First, God never lets anger get the best of him. But anybody who attacks his land and his people commits a great offense against the Lord. Now for scripture on that, go to the book of Joshua in the Old Testament. It's right after Deuteronomy, chapter 1, verses 2, 3, and 4. Or for the long version, chapters 13 through 20 of the book of Joshua. Now, besides that, second, when the Holy Land and its people are attacked by a foreign invader, God exercises his vigilance on behalf of his people. Israel does not even have to call out its armies to defeat the Russian and Arab armies in this prophecy. This is one that God will handle personally. I suspect the reason will be to come to Israel's defense, possibly because her chief ally, the United States, may be unable to do so at this point, for reasons that I have written about fairly extensively in the past. You can view that on Medium, my blog, if you want. It's medium.com/ampersand greatest servant 62. It's all one word, all lowercase, with the number 62 on the end of it. That's where the blog's located. But moving right along here. So instead of the Israeli Defense Force marching off to war, look what God does instead. In my zeal, quotes the prophet, and fiery wrath, I declare that at that time there shall be a great earthquake in the land of Israel. The fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the beasts of the field, every creature that moves along the ground, and all the people on the face of the earth will tremble at my presence. The mountains will be overturned, the cliffs will crumble, and every wall will fall to the ground. Close quote. I guess you know if every wall is falling to the ground, the ceilings come down with it. There will be nowhere to run. Nowhere to run. So there will be a natural disaster of biblical, proportions. Oh, yeah, pardon me. Evidently, there is going to be a big enough earthquake to stop the invading armies in their tracks. That would have to entail an extremely violent earthquake with a magnitude of 8.0 or above on the Richter scale, and possibly as much as a 10 plus. The extreme violence of the Temblor will scare the daylights out of the entire population, and even the animal kingdom will be affected. Apparently, a lot of camels will get thrown off their feet, that's for sure. Mountains will collapse. Towering cliffs will be turned into hills. And the walls of every structure will be leveled. The casualties will number in the hundreds of thousands dead and millions injured. There will be infighting prophesied among Israel's invaders. As I could continue to quote from the text, quote, I will summon a sword against Gog on all my mountains, declares the sovereign Lord. Every man's sword will be against his brother, close quote. To restate those last two sentences in modern English, the biggest outdoor brawl the world has ever seen will break out. Nobody is going to get left out of this fight, sometimes whether they like it or not. But we, Christ's followers, will be motivated to watch and pray, to just watch and pray. Quoting the scripture once again, I will execute upon him, that is upon Gog. I'm going to define Gog in just a moment, please hang with me. I will execute upon him plague and bloodshed. I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, and burning sulfur upon him and on his troops and on the many nations with him, close quote. This battle is not going to stop just because of an earthquake. Moreover, this doesn't appear to be an ordinary earthquake, but rather one of a supernatural nature. That's God's signature right there. An authentic supernatural occurrence of very mysterious origin. Besides the bloodshed of battle, Gog of Magog's troops will be struck with a plague, with torrential rain, giant hailstones, and with burning sulfur, which will presumably be the byproduct of the prophesied earthquake. Frankly, I'm not entirely sure how this will all come about. We're just going to have to wait and see, and to watch and pray for whatever comes our way. I doubt that we're going to have to wait for a very long time either. In point of fact, it is likely that these events will occur in our lifetimes, possibly in the coming years or even sooner. We better start getting ready now, before we run out of time. And now let's move on to part 2 of this week's message. Starting in Ezekiel 39 and verse 1, and I quote. This will be the first 6 verses. Son of man, prophesy against Gog and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against you, O Gog, chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. I will turn you around and drag you along. I will bring you from the far north and send you against the mountains of Israel. Then I will strike your bow from your left hand and make your arrows drop from your right hand. On the mountains of Israel you will fall, and all of your troops and the nations with you. I will give you as food to all the carrion, birds, and to the wild animals. You will fall in the open field, for I have spoken, declares the sovereign Lord. I will send fire on Magog and on those who live in safety in the coastal lands, and they will know that I am the Lord. Close quote. It's pretty strong stuff, don't you think? Okay. The original jumping off point for the war to come. Let me show you where it is. As I wrote in part 1 from last week, Meshach is the original Hebrew, roughly translates as the area around Moscow, Russia today. Not just the city, but the entire surrounding countryside, probably an area comprising hundreds of square miles. Tubal, the other name that we don't recognize, is generally considered to be the geographical area around modern Tobolsk, Russia. There are some who say that Meshach and Tubal are in modern Turkey, not Russia. They could be right, but why does Ezekiel include both Turkey and Russia in his prophecy? Quoting once again from the scriptures, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against you, O Gog, chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. I will turn you around and drag you along. I will bring you from the far north and send you against the mountains of Israel. Close quote. There's a lot of unanswered questions here, you know. Let me explore this for the next minute or two. Now, the country of Russia is nearly twice as far from Israel as the country of Turkey is. And yet both are prophesied to be part of the multi-pronged military assault on Israel. Moreover, Russia has 2 allies in the Middle East, Iran and Syria. And so it appears that the Gog-Magog War will go down something like this. The Confederation of Nations and Peoples, all of whom are mentioned by Ezekiel in this prophecy, as it was dictated to him by God, will launch a full-scale military assault on the nation of Israel. Iran and Syria, the 2 Russian allies, together with Turkey, Iraq, and the Muslim countries of southwestern Russia, such as Kazakhstan, and all the other stands that are over there, plus Somalia and Libya, and possibly Ethiopia, will all be included in this vast army. Curiously, Egypt is not mentioned at all by Ezekiel, nor does it say how Libya and Somalia will get their troops to the battlefield. In my opinion, and this part isn't in the Bible, neither of these last two countries will be able to get their troops to the battlefield without some assistance. Undoubtedly, they will be able to get the help they need. It could come from Russia, or more likely Iran, or possibly Egypt. There's no way to tell for sure at this point. But it could only be Russia, the instigator. And I quote the scriptures here briefly. Then I will strike your bow from your left hand and make your arrows drop from your right hand. On the mountains of Israel you will fall, you and all your troops and the nations with you. Close quote. And so we can see here, pretty clear, those who purport to attack Israel and its people will be disarmed. Not by Israel, but by God. The attack for which Israel's enemies have meticulously prepared will never finish being carried out. It'll start off strongly enough, that's for sure. But the well-planned and hyper-coordinated military assault of the combined nations will evaporate like a puddle of water on an August afternoon. At this point, Russia comes to the aid of its allies, Iran and Syria, probably aided by Turkey and possibly other countries as well. I'm pretty sure that's what Ezekiel meant when he wrote, I will turn you around, this is quoting him now, I will turn you around and drag you along. I will bring you from the far north against the mountains of Israel. The far north, I conclude, could only be Russia. Who else is up there? Mongolia? No, it's Russia. This will culminate at some time in the foreseeable future in the second coming of Jesus Christ. And I'm going to close today with this quote. You will fall in the open field, for I have spoken, declares the sovereign Lord. I will send fire on Magog and on those who live in safety in the coastlands, and they will know that I am the Lord. Close quote. In the open fields on their way to the mountains of Israel is a probable reference to the modern Golan Heights. And coming back again in retreat, the armies of Russia, Iran, Syria, and Turkey, and all the remaining armies with them, they will all perish. God will send fire on Magog, which appears to be some sort of nuclear attack, presumably coming from Israeli military forces as part of the counterattack that drives back all the nations. All the nations I have mentioned here. But it won't just be Israel all by herself. She's going to have divine intervention from the Lord, as I have already described. And when all these things begin to occur, you will know that Jesus Christ will soon arrive. That concludes this message. Normally, at the end of a church service, they pass around a collection basket. I'm online, so I can't do that. But if you spare a few dollars to donate, it would be very much appreciated. Instructions for that are in the comments section below. Instructions for subscribing to the blog, either the free or the $5 a month versions, is also below. And the donation particulars the email for PayPal, and the account on Stripe. There are all ways to take care of things. And for all those who can give, thank you very much. For all those who can't, don't worry about it. You are never, ever going to be judged because you have no money to give. We're not one of those kinds of churches. Of that you can be sure. You can be sure about that. And so, don't forget to give me a like, please. And a share or two. And a subscribe. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. It's free. And I ain't putting nothing but good stuff out here. This is no reality show. At any rate, I think I've said all that needs to be said. I want to thank each and every one of you for the privilege of your time. You're all ever so much appreciated. And I guess that concludes things for now. So everybody be blessed. Oh yes, I said be blessed. In Jesus' mighty name.